Remember the good old days when we used to think voice commands were awesome? Me neither. It's hard not to admit at some point though that we thought voice commands were way cooler than they are now. Today we've got Siri, stuff like Google voice commands, and we can't forget Connect. In the past, games like Hey You Pikachu seemed awesome. Then the Gamecube came around and we got this. You may have used this microphone in games like Mario Party 6 or Mario Party 7, but there's also another Nintendo published title that utilizes microphone as well. That game is Odama. Odama is a game that mixes tactical strategy elements with what else? Pinball. Now, I know what you guys may be thinking, but Enfreak, only someone as clinically insane as you could combine two elements like that? Well, that's where you'd be wrong. No. Wait, you're probably actually right.
Odama was spawned from the ridiculous mind of game designer Yoot Saito. His most recent release is the 3DS eShop title Aeroporter, which was also released as a retail game in a compilation of 4 different games known as Guildo 1 in Japan. Aeroporter is kind of strange, but what Yoot Saito is probably most well known for is the questionably named Seaman for the Sega Dreamcast. The game was a pet simulator where you were tasked with taking care of a fish with a man's head. Man, what's with all these fishes with human body parts lately? Seaman is comparable to something along the lines of Nintendogs, only much weirder.
Wait. Seaman? No. Not the Seaman. Anything but that.
Ironically enough, Seaman, like Odama, also made use of the microphone accessory for the Dreamcast, which was used to talk to your Seaman and have very odd conversations with them. It seems as though Saito had a sort of fondness towards voice commands. But enough about Seaman. Odama takes place in 16th century medieval Japan. You're tasked with leading an army of nameless soldiers and the Nintendo Bell, carried by the underwear-clad Bell crew, to the goal before sundown. The way you go about this in each stage may be different, and it's much easier said than done. The game is very difficult, but you have one big weapon on your side to crush your enemies. That weapon is the Obama. I mean the Odama.
Obama can crush some other things though. Like our economy. Yeah, I'll be here all week.
Making your way through 11 different battlefields, you can control the Odama both with your flippers, just like in regular pinball, as well as the analog stick, kinda like in Super Monkey Ball. While the terrain is always oriented downwards, you can still control where the Odama goes fairly easily, as long as you don't want to go straight up. But don't lose all your Odamas, because just like in regular pinball, if you lose all your balls, the game is over. While committing mass murder is one of the uses of the Odama, you can also recruit the enemy by getting a power-up that turns the Odama green for a short amount of time. While in this magical green state, the Odama also doesn't hurt your troops either, so it's a win-win situation.
Another great tactic players can use to fend off the enemy is with the use of rice balls. You can pick up these rice balls during each of the stages and then launch them somewhere in the battlefield. Enemy troops that are near this rice ball will gather around it, allowing your troops to advance for a short amount of time. I can definitely sympathize with these guys. My parents are Middle Eastern, so I know the oh-so-sweet temptations of rice.
On the technical side, the visuals are nothing to rave about. They're muddy and just kinda plain ugly at times. I'm assuming this mostly has to do with the large number of troops on screen at once. That could also explain why there are occasional dips in the frame rate from time to time. As far as the sound department goes, there's not a whole lot in terms of actual music during gameplay, but the voice work and sound effects throughout are really great. The developers chose to keep the Japanese dubbing in the game, and it really works. I can't really imagine Odama with English voiceovers. Sometimes the English subtitles aren't up to par though.
Oh, excellent.
I didn't mention all that stuff at the beginning about voice commands for nothing though. The main hook of Odama was the use of the Gamecube microphone to issue commands to your troops so they could advance further into the stage. It's a cool concept on paper, but how does it work in practice?
There are only a few different commands available to you. The obvious ones include advance, which tells your troop to move forward, fall back, march left, and march right. The press forward command can be used when there are a lot of troops blocking your path, which will allow your troops to gain the strength to push through the enemy for a short distance. The other important command is rally, which is used to tell your troops to move to a certain point outlined by a square cursor, pick up certain items on the battlefield, and a couple of other things as well. You'll need to use these commands, as well as others that you learn later on while playing, to make your way through each stage. If you kill too many of your own with the Odama though, your morale will decrease and your troops may not listen to you anymore, so don't be reckless. Although the voice commands seem to work a lot of the time, there were definitely some issues when it came to recognition.
And therein lies my main problem with Odama. The voice commands just don't work all the time, and this can be critical when you play the game. There were times where I would say press forward just to have my troops fall back instead. And as I mentioned earlier, this game is very difficult, so when the voice commands don't work, it makes everything just that much more frustrating. And then there are those moments when you're so close to victory, just to lose your ball at the very last minute. Of course, this is player error, but this game just sometimes makes me wanna... Despite some of its flaws, not to mention its brevity, I find it really hard not to like Odama though. It's such a bizarre concept that you really can't find anywhere else. I mean seriously, who would think to combine tactical strategy elements with pinball? Pinball. Understandably so, the game really didn't sell very well, and because of this, it's really cheap online now, even with the microphone. I think the game is worth a shot. While it may not be fantastic, I think at least it's an interesting curiosity.